Welcome to the Eye on Annapolis Local Business Spotlight. There are thousands of locally owned businesses in the area, some small and some large. Some you may know and others you don't. But one thing they all have in common is a great story, and we want to share it with you. Join us every Saturday as we talk to the founders, the owners, and the managers of local businesses you have come to know and love, and those you will come to know and love. Now here's your host, John Frenay, with this week's Local Business Spotlight.
Well, we're here at Rise Up Coffee, and that is the most familiar thing I'm going to talk about today because we are here with Emily Encinosa, who is a midwife and doula, birth doula.
Yes, that's correct.
And, I think that you're my second doula I've spoken with, but the other one was a death doula.
Oh my goodness, yeah, that's a very new population.
So we're going from one end of the spectrum to the other end, and your company is Expecting with Emily, and that's expectingwithemily.com. And as I said, I am way over my head, way out of my comfort level here, but let's see what happens. Help me to understand, I guess, the doula. I mean, the death doula had told me that, and I'll really dumb this down a little bit. She's a helper to the end of the life.
Mm-hmm. Transitioning.
And does that translate to a
Regular
birth doula as a helper for birth?
100%. And as a midwife, there is equal parts. I mean, in birth, there is, sometimes a baby's contract is not to be on this earth, right? And so there is just as much of that fortunately and unfortunately, that we process with birth work as well. And so that's where I think afterlife and end-of-life doula and even bereavement doulas are like a very new thing that we're starting to hear about. But with birth, and in particularly with what I do as a midwife, very much I'm there to help transition and usher in life as they come through the veil into this world, earthside. That's what I always say. Babies are coming earthside.
Well, we've used two words. You were midwife. Is it midwifery or midwifery?
So midwifery care is how I describe like the midwifery model of care, what you're receiving, the prenatal care, the postpartum, all the support. But midwives is the word. So instead of an OBGYN, someone would come and see a midwife, whether they're in the hospital or even out of hospital, wanting out of hospital support. That's what I do. And then doulas are there as just emotional and physical, to provide physical comfort. So we're there not in like providing care. As a midwife, we are. They don't have to have a doctor. We would take their care provider role. In fact, the World Health Organization and even ACOG is now saying that low-risk women need to be cared for by midwives. And we need midwives on the front line of care because birth is not an emergent event and does not need to be medically managed.
For thousands and thousands of years, it never was.
Exactly. And midwives have been around doing their thing. The ACOG has put out a lot of new studies lately that all the midwives collectively have eye rolled because we're like, managing, pushing physicians upright and changing positions in labor. Yes, they do help. We've been doing that for a while.
Well, I had a friend out in California that did the water birth in his living room type of thing. And, I just rolled my eyes because, that's a California thing to do.
It is, and that's what I started it out west. I started my practice as a doula and as a home birth midwife in Nevada, which has a very big home birth community out there. In fact, I worked at a very, and was part owner of a very high volume maternity center. It wasn't a birth center, but it was a home birth. It was comprised of home birth midwives, and we had doulas and lactation consultants and classes and all the things. And that is my goal, is to open that up here in the next year, so that way we can have something to offer Annapolis and really bring collectively for the community that support.
Well, that's all. Now you don't replace a doctor.
Yeah, as a midwife, I absolutely do. Yeah. And they can do co-care. Most doctors don't, unless you're seeing like a in-hospital midwife with like luminous OBGYN. They have their own midwives that work with them. But I'm an out-of-hospital midwife, so I work independent. I have my own practice. We do only home births. I don't have privileges at a hospital.
Okay.
And I have regulations too. So like there's specific guidelines that you have to fall into in order to like qualify for a home birth or to work with a midwife out of hospital. And then also like continuing in your care. As you get closer to the birth or at the birth, there's guidelines that keep you within that low risk parameter. So we know that we're able to keep you safe in the event that there's something that comes up where we need more monitoring, whether that's prenatally or in the middle of the birth, or even sometimes after the baby is born. We have those relationships to where we aren't like affiliated with them, but we can transfer to a hospital, or I can send my clients out to like maternal fetal medicine to get any sort of ultrasounds or things like that done.
Well, that was one of my questions. I mean, if you're in the middle of giving birth and something happens, I mean, you call 911, the ambulance comes and we go over to the hospital, or depending on how emergent it is, I mean, maybe put them in the car and go.
Well, it's uncommon that all of a sudden something just happens.
I guess you know about that before.
And usually that's what I say, like in the last 6 weeks, that's typically when we're screening for risk factors. Any care provider, whether you're with an OBGYN or a midwife, it's those last 6 weeks of pregnancy that things like gestational diabetes, preeclampsia, pregnancy-induced hypertension, small-sized babies, things like that come up. Now, with the midwifery model of care, we follow evidence, and we, more importantly, believe that birth is normal and natural. We believe that physiological birth is paramount, right? And our bodies aren't broken, they work. So we do differ in the event that, like, I'm not always looking for things to risk somebody out or medically manage or induce a labor. But I'm doing the same things of screening to make sure that someone stays within those low risk parameters.
Okay.
And in labor, I'm listening and doing vitals. So we're listening to baby's heart tones every 30 minutes in active labor. I'm taking mom's vitals every hour when I get there, every 4 hours in active labor until we have a baby, and then postpartum immediately too. So if there were anything that sounds concerning with baby's fetal heart tones or with mom's vitals, or even afterwards, then we're talking about what that looks like. It's really uncommon. And like, there's a lot of studies that the National Association of Certified Professional Midwives has put out. They collect, and even the state of Maryland, I'm licensed through the state, and they collect all of our outcomes and what our transfer scenarios and percentages are like, because they want to know, is it something that, yes, like, oh my goodness, everything all of a sudden went south and we had to transport. And we find that that's not necessarily the case. Most of the time, what we're transporting for is prolonged labor, and that's like maternal exhaustion, first-time moms. It takes a long time, and they maybe want pain relief, or we need to augment labor because it's been such a long time that we're just not seeing labor progress. And as home birth midwives, we do allow that time. But what we want to make sure is that mom is comfortable. We're not seeing.
Well, we're dealing with two people here.
Exactly. And the baby is too, yeah. Exactly.
And we've got to be able, and then mom has to be able to, I guess, push.
Yep.
If he's not able to, then that's a problem.
100%. And that's where, like, the difference is too, like when you're intervening with a hospital, right? There's medicine that can also cause adverse reactions. So with like medication, fentanyl that's in an epidural, narcotics that are in an epidural, they do cross the placental barrier, right? And then we also have Pitocin, which sometimes is definitely needed, but those sort of things aren't happening in a home birth. So that's why it's really uncommon that we all of a sudden see like fetal heart rate tones are not reassuring, or mom is having really adverse reactions. That's stuff that typically happens when we're augmenting labor in that capacity, and at home we don't. And that's where, like, if we were seeing maternal exhaustion, like you're saying, we change the setting of what that needs to be like.
Birth is stressful for everybody involved. I got to imagine that a home birth is a lot less stressful. I know when my child was born here, my youngest was born at Anne Arundel Medical Center before it was Luminous.
Yeah.
And it just opened up, and they gave us the tour literally the night before. It was early and everything else, and they showed us all the rooms, all the private rooms, everything else, and then they doubled doors. I said, and this area, these suites are for real problems and stillbirths and, you know, a place for the family to mourn and stuff like that. And they told us this and everything else. Fast forward less than 24 hours, we're going in. My ex-wife was in with early labor. I mean, she was 45 minutes labor for the longest of the 3 kids. So we're zooming up Forest Drive. We get in there. It wasn't delivered by a doctor. It was delivered by a nurse. And they wheeled us through the double doors. And my ex-wife is like, oh my God, what's up? And I'm like, oh my God, what's up? What's up? The kid was kind. Afterwards I said, well, what's up with the double doors? And I said, well, we use it for overflow when the other rooms are full. And I'm like, you need to put that in your little tour, as opposed to this is
Because you thought you were going in the room. That's the bereavement.
this is where the story says. And it was just like,
That is because you had just toured it. It's in your mind. Yeah.
and I mean, everything was happening. I mean, it was,
So fast.
but so I've got to imagine a home birth has to be so much more relaxing. I mean, you're, dad's in a place that he's familiar with. Mom's in a place that she's familiar with. If you've given care to them throughout the pregnancy, you're in a place that you're familiar with. And, there's no distraction. I mean, we can throw on Jerry Springer on the TV or whatever we eat. So I've got to imagine that's probably a huge benefit to doing a home birth.
Yes, and that's exactly it. In the continuity of care, just like you talked about, I'm the only person that my clients see, and I always take a birth assistant with me who's another midwife or they're a nurse. And I even have some people who are like reaching out and wanting to support they've been retired paramedics wanting to do that sort of stuff. So they're all very skilled in that space. So there's typically me and one other person, and they see me for an hour or change each visit, only me. So I get to know them as well. And that also provides like better outcomes in care because they only see me. So I usually know a lot more what's going on with their care when it comes time to birth, but we're setting them up for that too in our appointments, talking about their birth plans, what they want, how to cope with labor, because we do know, especially naturally, it's intense. I don't give any pain relief. We use water and different alternatives, and that's really what we teach in our prenatal appointments.
I think it's something you talk about pain. And I mean, I've talked with my girlfriend about, cold and heat and stuff like that. And I think there's so much of it is up in your head. And, and I know that I've torn my quadricep in both knees at different times. When it happened, I couldn't walk, I couldn't get up or anything like that because it was torn. But I mean, I just sort of, I want to say, willed the pain away. There was no pain. During the physical therapy, they're like, oh, take the Percocet to get ahead of the pain, it's going to be bad. And I'm like, well, I don't know how addictive I am, so I never took it.
Sure.
But I said, I'll take the Tylenol. And, but I mean, I think a lot of it is mental. And certainly when you look into breathing exercises and positioning and just, I know babies can like move around and figure out, okay, this is really painful. Well, let's
Shane?
do the camel pose or, the downward dog yoga or whatever it may be. On your website, again, it's expectingwithemily.com. You've got midwifery care. You've got advanced doula support and something that really blows my mind, placenta encapsulation.
Yeah.
I know doulaing from my last interview with a doula has been around for centuries, if not longer. Why is it, do you know, that it's only become popular back in our vernacular, like in the last 30 years? I mean, this is just something when my kids were born, I didn't, it wasn't an option. I mean, I know it probably existed and they were probably the hippie, dippy, freaky people that
California was. Yeah, Ina Mae Gaskins is she's like the godmother in home birth midwifery. She has a place called The Farm in Tennessee, and she trains home birth midwives. But when we think about licensure and regulations, in Nevada, there was none. We had a lot of people that would come out and beat down the regulations whenever we would try to put them forth. Same thing with Pennsylvania. It's really with like very strong Amish, Mormon, Quaker, very conservative religious communities that you're not going to find that. So back in the day, midwives were all underground. They were made illegal when we started bringing people into the hospital systems. And OBs trained in midwifery colleges in New York back in the day. And then in the 1930s and the 1940s, when we were practicing aseptic technique, bringing people out of their homes into hospitals so that way we weren't spreading infection and diseases, midwives became illegal. So doulas really started to come around because they were the people who would sit with women. And that's what a doula means. The name doula means with women. And they just sit with you and we hold that space. And so instead of providing care, people who would otherwise be midwives are essentially prosecuted for providing medicalized care, but still serving that population that needed that support. That is how that really transitioned. And even still, like Maryland just had home birth midwifery regulated, like licensed in 2017. So this is a very new thing here. So doulas were really the only thing for a very long time that women were getting to support more of those natural options because of just the laws and the way that the medical model of care wants to make it easier for.
Well, it certainly sounds like it was it's a good thing that you're out of the closet and out of the shadows.
Oh yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
Walk me through the midwifery care is soup to nuts.
Yes, soup to nuts. It's everything. So instead of seeing an OBGYN, you would come to me as your midwife, and I would do all of your prenatal care, your postpartum care, and deliver your baby at home.
Okay, so now this is from the day after I pee on this deck.
Yeah, you can come to me as early as possible. And so the nice thing about out-of-hospital midwives is, like, if I have somebody who's got fertility stuff or they've had miscarriages in the past, I will usually work with them sooner to do their labs and to make sure that we're really supporting versus waiting until like 10 to 12 weeks on the late end, where sometimes that's when you'll have, or if they're just very busy. The Luminous is so busy, and it's a great thing, but it sometimes takes a long time for people to be seen for their initial visit. So yes, they see me from the time that they conceive, or really at any time. I take transfers to care up until 28 weeks. So in their pregnancy, they can come in.
Is that your first 28 weeks?
Yeah, I personally feel most comfortable with that because I think that is like the start of the third trimester, and that's when we're screening for risk factors and things like that. And I never guarantee a home birth. I guarantee midwifery care. The benefit of what we're doing is the midwifery model of care, and most of my clients stay home. However, I never want to have somebody, especially to, like, if things are coming up and they're not sure what that is, right? There's some disconnect because maybe they're not understanding why potentially they could be high risk, and they're wanting a midwife because they don't want to be induced. They don't want all of these things. And usually, yes, like, people were screening for that, so I know ahead of time, but that can sometimes be hard later in care. There's a lot of things that jump out, and to me, I never want to get someone in a scenario where we're set up for a home birth and then I have to risk them out of care and I can't give them that, or they have a smaller window of like what that home birth, like staying at home having a baby, looks like, right? With their blood pressure or something like that, right? And that's a lot of work and a lot of money also that somebody's investing. I don't bill insurance. I'm out of network with insurance. Most of the time that is not covered by out of hospital births are not covered by insurance.
Or not?
No.
So that's ridiculous.
Yeah. And so the state of Virginia actually just changed it to where Medicaid is including with CPNs and out-of-hospital midwives. So I work with a biller, and usually my clients can apply for like gap extensions, or some of their care can be like reimbursed. It's just never a guarantee.
That's just so ridiculous because for somebody that a home birth is makes sense, that they want to do it and everything else. I mean, you reduce the stress on hospitals. You reduce,
surgery, some money that's going into the hospital.
True, I know, and it's in as the insurance,
but it is true.
No, in the insurance company. I mean, the insurance companies run. I mean, I told the story a number of times, but I used to go to a dentist, and I'm older than you, but they used to have little cups of water that when they did the toothpaste, you reached over, you filled the cup, you drank it, did a shot, sipped and spit in the sink. And they're long gone. And I asked what happened. They said, well, it was the insurance companies. They said, okay, we're going to pay, $200 for a cleaning. And they said, okay, we're going to pay $150. We're going to pay $100. And now at this point, at $75 that the insurance company pays for a cleaning, they can't afford to waste the time for me leaning over, sipping and spitting. They need to use that little sucky thing, and they can get 8 more patients in a day cleaning.
Yep.
To pay the rent, to pay the insurance and everything. Yeah. And then insurance companies are just horrible. I mean, they're just in the business to deny whatever they promised to do for you.
Well, and that's what I talk to people about when you're thinking about where you want to have your baby too. It is a lot about that. People say that home birth is expensive, and it is an initial investment that is upfront cost. And again, like, I don't ever guarantee. I mean, yes, it's uncommon that I transfer someone. However, I don't ever want somebody to be hung up on that, right? Because it is a commitment, and then you would incur like a hospital bill, right? Most people have insurance, so that is something that is okay if there is a transfer that happens. But that's also personally why I don't take late transfers, because for me, like, there's a lot that can go on. I want you to be set up for success. I want the relationship to be there. I also only take 2 to 5.
It said that relationship, and I that was going through my mind when you said the 28 weeks. I mean, that gives you 12 more weeks to do it. Okay, now let's face it, this is a very personal type of an event that's happening here.
Exactly.
And going back into, and I don't mean to diss any of the OBGYN people, but I mean, typically it's like the doctor comes in and I think it's Bill Cosby. I mean, I'd probably not get to mention him now at this point, but I mean, he's there like Johnny Bench just waiting to catch. Yes. And then he leaves.
Yep. Yep. And that's true. And it's built on trust, like home birth, midwifery care, and even like the midwifery model, right? I ask a lot of questions. I'm not always doing a ton of didactic work. We absolutely are still doing those things. I'm still doing labs. I'm still sending somebody out for an ultrasound if that's what they want. But getting to know them and making my clients trust that they can come to me if something isn't feeling normal, and we can work on preventative ways, because nutrition is the one thing in pregnancy that impacts outcomes in a positive way. And when's the last time your OBGYN took a nutrition class? You know what I mean? Like, that's not required for hospital care. We talk about that. That is the main thing that I talk about with all my clients for the first 16 weeks is nutrition.
Wow. Yeah, that makes sense.
And that's the important thing. And so there is such a benefit to that. But for people who aren't ready to do home birth, I offer just maternity care as well. And that is a little bit of a lesser cost, but people can always inquire. And then for doula support, I offer monitory services, which is advanced doula care.
Is that sort of just checking in periodically to make sure everything's
good? Yep. And I do 2 prenatal appointments to educate, create a birth plan, make sure that they have resources and referrals. And then at 36 weeks, we go over like postpartum care plans, breastfeeding support, and any last minute things as it comes to preparing for the birth. And then I go there and support them emotionally and like comfort measures physically in the birth. And I still provide 1 postpartum visit too, so that way they have follow-up if they need lactation referrals, if they do their placenta, I'm dropping that off, or if they have any questions otherwise. And as an advanced doula, because I'm a midwife, I can obviously answer questions that are a little bit more outside of the scale on the board knowledge. Yeah. And even doing like a cervical exam if they wanted to labor at home and know like, yes, you are a certain amount dilated. We could go to the hospital. They're not going to send you back because you're not there. Yeah, because that happens a lot to first-time moms. And thankfully here, like Luminous and even BWMC, like everybody's very close. So we're not traveling far. But if you want to stay natural, that can really be a mind game when you're like, okay, I got to be 6 centimeters in an active labor. And you get a cervical exam and they're like, no, lady, you're 2.
Yeah, go back home, and if you got a 305 at the hospital, that's a bullshit.
And so it's just it's nicer when I am the one doing it, I promise, and giving you very lovingly suggestions on how we're gonna support you if it's not time yet. But then I do placenta encapsulation as well, and that's usually for my clients only. I don't typically take them out. Occasionally I will if somebody's interested, but I screen all of my clients for like STIs and certain infections in pregnancy, and then I encapsulate that.
So the placenta encapsulation, then hopefully I'm a little bit more mature and able to stomach this a little bit better. And there is essentially the placenta, which is the goop that comes out afterwards.
Yeah, it's a whole
it's like inorganic.
Body grows. It's amazing.
That is, if I'm gathering it, is dried out.
Yep, we dehydrate it. So first I steam it and sterilize it. And if somebody does have like GBS, which is an infection that you can have in pregnancy that they treat for with antibiotics occasionally, I will do an apple cider vinegar rinse and then steam it for longer to make sure there's no infection. We dehydrate it, and then I start to encapsulate it with just pills. And then I also do a tincture as well. So I'll take some of the ground up placenta and put it in alcohol and water and let that sit for six weeks. So usually by the time somebody is finished with their capsules that they've received from their placenta, they're then ready to take their tincture, which is just a longer way to extend the benefits. The idea of placenta encapsulation is that you're putting back the hormones from your pregnancy that your body is then depleted in, which causes a lot of mood swings, like baby blues, hormonal fluctuation.
Primarily for the mother.
Yes, that's correct. Nobody else would be taking this. The idea is it's that nutrient density. And so for people who aren't interested in placenta encapsulation, the University of Nevada actually did a study on this years ago, and the midwifery center that I was part of, they helped in some of it. We never found any hard and fast that was like, yes, over the course of X, Y, and Z people, we saw that this was what it did. It's really filling back in the nutrients we lose. So if you're eating a really nutrient-dense diet, and you're eating protein, you're getting in your micronutrients, you're still supporting your body. But obviously the hormones that we are losing from birth itself is what you're putting back in and what kind of regulates.
Sort of like a super vitamin that's coming back in after birth. It's like, okay, we've been through this trauma.
Yep.
And let's face it, it's trauma.
It
is, you know.
It is.
$1.
And we don't give ourselves enough time to recover, right? So when we have...
Certainly the hospital doesn't. They say, oh,
Well,
3 o'clock, you're out.
Society, I actually do a lot of stuff with... so I offer free postpartum or prenatal Pilates classes. I offer pregnancy groups, support groups once a month for free. And I also do Postpartum Support International, which is really all about postpartum awareness, because we really do a poor job of supporting not just mothers and babies, but families when it comes to the first year of life and what that looks like and setting realistic expectations. And so not just with like placenta encapsulation can that help, but the midwifery model of care supports the Fine Family Dyad too. So we really help transition the whole family, and we encompass everything, not just mom.
Well, I will say too, and for those that have never had the experience of having a child, birth is probably the only event in life that will change your life
Yeah.
literally overnight.
100%.
And I can't think of any, maybe some horrific car accident or something like that. But I mean, in the course of a normal life,
It's impactful.
that it just, everything is upended of what you had known as normal.
Yes.
I remember when my first was born, they said, don't go out and do the cigars and the beers with the boys. Go home, sleep, because that's the last good night of sleep you're going to get for another 6 months.
Very true. Yes. And also too, like society, like I said, society sets up very unrealistic expectations around infant sleep and what that looks like for people. So when you have somebody that's there, like a doula or a midwife, that you can reach out to and say, hey, is this normal? Or, hey, I think I need you to come over for an hour and hold this baby so that I can get a little bit of sleep. That's very life-changing when you have a lot of other kids to manage, or when it's your first time and you don't have family here, or family doesn't know how to help. Everybody wants to be really helpful, and we just don't know how, right? So having a doula...
I mean, like they have this 50 years old.
Yeah.
Or 30 years old.
And what we did, yes, oh my goodness. So I'm home now with my mom, and like what she did for me was very different. And what she thinks that is like right parenting is very different than what I think.
Just put a little bit of rice and vodka in the formula and you'll go right to sleep.
In the teeth, that's exactly what it is, 100%. And you know what? Sometimes all you need is a warm body. God didn't put broken things on this planet, 100%. Our babies are strong and resilient, and so are we as humans and parents, moreover. And as a midwife, and not just that, as a mother, my job is to create that transparency and hold that space for the way that we grow into this new transition and for women in this period in life.
Have there been any studies? I mean, you talked about some of the studies that are out of Las Vegas, but whether a home birth, working with a doula, whether working with a midwife, is better for the child or the mother? And obviously you said the dad's, it's,
Yes.
so is it better, generally a better
We
experience?
are having new studies that have came out, and that is why now the American Council of Obstetrics and Gynecology is coming out and acknowledging that the midwifery model of care and midwives need to be on the front line taking care of low-risk pregnancies, because we have done a lot of study in the last 11 years. I actually cite it on one of my social media posts a couple weeks ago. I shared it, and I don't remember if it was the Corcoran review or not, but we did a study on home birth outcomes, and it does say that low risk families, low risk infants, low risk mothers with trained and qualified midwives are having the same outcomes as a hospital birth. So it is in fact safe, if not safer, than a hospital birth when you're birthing at home with a midwife or in a birth center. So yeah, and we have nurse midwives, we have certified professional midwives, which is what I am. We're trained in out of hospital birth explicitly. That's all I do. So for me, I'm not trying to have a hospital at your house. I know, and I carry all of my emergency equipment, but at the same time, I recognize very quickly when something is outside of normal and when it's time to make that decision to go to another venue.
How did you get into this?
So I was a personal trainer for a very long time, and I worked with pregnant women and supported pregnant bodies in that space. I then got Pilates certified. I trained a doula, and I also had a pregnant mom that was a client of mine that had a doula at the maternity center that I ended up owning. And she told me that I'd be a really good doula. I was helping women prepare for childbirth and even recover from childbirth as a trainer. And what I realized when I was hearing a lot of people tell me about their experiences is that it was something that was passively happening to them. And we are never going to be able to live to our highest and best and full self if we are constantly mitigating our lives through trauma. So I then got really smart and realized that I needed to become a doula so that I could help empower people's experiences and create a different experience and different awareness around what they were doing. So this was not something passively happening to humans anymore, and that we were remaining intact and a little bit more whole on the outside of this experience.
You're a Broadneck grad, right?
I am.
I see you're wearing your Broadneck colors today. You've got your maroon, but think back to your senior year of high school. Did you ever picture this trajectory?
So I actually dropped out of high school. I had a very hard and traumatic life. I had a lot of loss in my family. My mom was quite sick growing up. She had a heart transplant and was in and out of Johns Hopkins Hospital for quite some time. So my life has changed in a really big way and in a really positive way, because I actually wasn't sure what my life would amount to when I was 18 years old. And I actually left this place to go to New York City and figure out who I was. So I'm super blessed to be able to come back in a big way, in a positive way, and have healed myself through my life and be able to walk alongside other people and open that space up for the community here.
Well, you've been doing an awful lot of good for a number of mothers and fathers and babies that are around. Now, how long has your practice been established here?
I just got my license to practice in March as a midwife.
Okay.
And I had been taking doula clients since January, but I've even been attending births here since I moved here last year.
Okay. How many births have you done?
Oh, well over 500. Attended, yes. 174 babies. And I've probably even caught more than that.
That's cool. Are you godmother to any of them?
No, not yet. And nobody's named their baby Emily, but you know what? It's funny. Emily is a very popular name, especially around here. I have 2 other friends that are birth workers named Emily and a bunch of clients named Emily right now. But anybody that wants to, name their baby after me.
There you go. Expecting with Emily.
Yeah.
I would suggest that if you are expecting, check it out. Expectingwithemily.com. If you are expecting to expect, give that a check out as well.
Yeah.
Expectingwithemily.com. And Emily Encinosa, thank you so much for your time today. Congratulations. I guess welcome home.
Thank you.
And, maybe we should revisit this when you're up at, say, 500 births.
Oh, I know. I will.
That's probably in a couple of months,
When I open up my maternity center, I'll invite you to the grand opening.
I absolutely want to be there, but thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this week's Local Business Spotlight. Please make sure to visit eyeonannapolis.net for all your local news, events, and opinion. And in case you haven't already, please subscribe to the Eye on Annapolis Daily News Brief, where we bring you all the day's local news direct to your phone, tablet, or computer in about 10 minutes. It comes to you at 6 a.m. every Monday through Friday, and you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.